Welcome back, Hauser's YouTube channel. The plan is effective communication for the APUSH students and everybody else in the house that wants to learn U.S. history. Peter Zenger is freedom of the press and the tradition of criticizing our leaders. Peter Zenger, freedom of the press. Reviewing the French and Indian War, which was started by George Washington, May 28, 1754. The French and English do not have a declaration of war before this. Both are rivals for power of the planet. You see where the French have lots of territory. So Washington is sent out to find out what the French are up to. The French have diplomatic papers. They want to negotiate. They want to talk about land boundaries. Although they are armed and they're in the wilderness, Washington fires the first shot and his men kill French soldiers. It's down here in the Ohio River Valley in Pennsylvania where the fighting begins. The French will push the English back. A general by the name of Braddock, an English guy, will die in the wilderness of Virginia in the French and Indian War, and it's a big blow to the British. So in the beginning, the French and Indian War does not look good for England, but as we all know, England will defeat the French in the French and Indian War. This is not the American Revolution. This is the French and Indian War. Ben Franklin's idea, hook up all together or risk the possibility of being overrun. So it's not an attempt to go for independence, rather unite. And this is what the AP likes, that we invite the Iroquois to town to try to help make a deal in Albany. Idea rejected. Quickly moving along, because I've been over this in class. Great book on the topic. We need to know about Pontiac's War, which breaks out around Michigan. The Ottawa Indians, 1763, trying to take advantage of the situation between England and France. The Ottawa do not want to be dominated by the Brits. Pontiac's War, it fails. You see the page number. The big battle in the French and Indian War will be on the plains of Abraham, right outside the city of Quebec. This is another British general that will die. Wolfe. And Montcalm passes away on the French side. So the French, before the French and Indian War, and then after the French and Indian War, they're out of here. It should be pointed out, in the French and Indian War, the French have soldiers and are putting up a heck of a battle against the British. The French need supplies. The French Navy is being blocked out by the British Navy. They can't resupply the French. The French will get their revenge 1781 October down here at Yorktown, Virginia, when the British are trapped against the Americans and the British need supplies, but the French Navy will keep them out. So the French will get their comeuppance. They'll get even with the British in our American Revolution. The Proclamation Line of 1763, it's always on the exam. It's the Appalachian Mountains. The American colonists are told, do not cross over. Yeah, they are. Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett will go into Tennessee and Kentucky. After the French and Indian War, we get the end of salutary neglect, and the British do expect the Americans to pay taxes. And there is one individual who says, as you see, give me liberty or give me death. I'm not paying no stinking taxes to the British. No taxation without representation. But we understand from studying our history, if you're a British citizen in England, you are heavily taxed. If you live in colonial America, your taxes aren't so high. So people can't understand why the colonials won't pay their taxes. The rates are pretty low. Does this have a theme running through it? Low taxes here in America? Edmund Burke was one person in the British Parliament who was from Dublin, Ireland, who does agree with the Americans that they have a case. They have a case about this taxation issue. Other political thinkers of the day, right here, Hobbes, Locke, Paine, Jefferson, Rousseau, Montesquieu. James Otis early on is considered the brains behind the philosophy of the American Revolution. Sam Adams will speak it out in the taverns. And Sam Adams wasn't this big famous brewer we all know. It was a short career, but Sam Adams is pretty popular today. However, James Otis is very mad at King George III, like many colonists are. Again, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. The Sons of Liberty in Boston could be called terrorists because they're terrorizing loyalists, trying to make them afraid, not to speak out in support of the king or possibly just get out of Boston. There are Daughters of Liberty too. Patrick Henry, so we got enough of him. Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine is completely an Enlightenment thinker. Logic and reason. Get away from superstition and definitely never have a monarch. That just does not make sense. It goes against natural law. The Enlightenment people are not atheists. It's called deism. God is like the master clock maker. He has created the universe, he set it in motion, and then he is not involved. So, contrary to what people might try to tell you, the Enlightenment thinkers and Thomas Paine were not atheists. They did believe in a higher power. Thomas Paine has one of the most incredible lives I've ever read about. Who knows if the movie will ever be made? If his first wife delivers their child, possibly he lives sort of happily ever after in England, but he was a dissenter in England. His wife died in childbirth and things did not go well from Paine. Yeah, he hit the bottle. He tried to drink his blues away, and that did not work. He met Benjamin Franklin in London, and Franklin will sign papers and a letter of introduction for Paine to come to America. So once the American Revolution starts going bad, Paine authors The Crisis. Thomas Paine is George Washington's #1 backer. George Washington has a lot of detractors, people that want him gone. But Thomas Paine has always supported George Washington. And so when times get tough, will the summer soldier, the sunshine patriot, will in this crisis stray from the service of the country? But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered. So we've declared independence July 4th, 1776. We voted on it July 2nd. But nobody is independent because we're fighting a war. And Washington has a gigantic problem. He's lost every battle in the first year of the American Revolution. The American Revolution started at Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775. The history books call Saratoga Springs, New York, the turning point because we fight the British on an open battlefield. We defeat them. Benedict Arnold's a hero. France will come to our side. The last fighting is Yorktown, October of 1781, with a few skirmishes afterwards. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 will kick the British out of our country, but they'll just go across the border to Canada like a vulture, waiting for the American experiment in democracy to fail. We all know about common sense and Thomas Paine by now. We know that the Enlightenment is a major contributor to this feeling for natural rights, inequality, freedom, and democracy. George Washington is this amazing leader. Did you know? Shot heard around the world. Lexington, Concord. And when the British march out and surrender, the fife and drummers play World Turn Upside Down. Molly Pitcher's husband at the Battle of Monmouth is working a cannon. She is doing the running back and forth for water, Molly Pitcher. When her husband is injured, she will take over on the cannon. Women did fight in the American Revolution. Her name is Molly Pitcher, so now you get the idea for a pitcher of water. And this is where we're at in class right now. We're watching the crossing Will Washington win at Trenton? I think we know the answer. This is the famous picture, which is completely nonsense. The American flag has not been designed by Betsy Ross yet, and so it can't be on the boat here, and Washington is sitting down in the back as they're crossing. The Declaration of Independence. Once again, this guy John Locke, we can't seem to get rid of him. He is so crucial to the American experiment in self-government. Again, it's called democracy. We know it originated in Athens, Greece, and it didn't last forever there. Without a doubt, the most important political document in American history. Now, if we lose the war, no, it's shredded up, burned, destroyed, we'll never hear of it. But since we won the American Revolution, it's key. We're telling everybody why we're fighting for independence, and we're saying George III is the bad guy. We are completely pointing the finger at King George III. And on top of this, Jefferson, repeating Locke and going with Paine, says we have natural rights and all men are created equal. The hypocrisy, of course, is Jefferson is a slave owner. This is the biggie when we get to it, the Louisiana Purchase. Some argue with the bug eyes of King George III, it is a sign of an illness, I can't remember, it's a mental illness in which you will go crazy. And there is a movie out there, The Madness of King George. Have yet to see it. But when King George expects us to pay taxes, salutary neglect is over, and the colonists don't like it. King George. So Jefferson has to go through rewrites on the Declaration of Independence, and he has a committee. Adams and Ben Franklin and James Sherman, who's not in the picture. These people are advising the redhead, President number 3, Thomas Jefferson from Virginia, this is good or this is bad. Any reference to slavery is taken out, and the Declaration of Independence does not ban slavery. The 13th Amendment is how we end slavery. So on July 2nd, the delegates in Philadelphia vote on independence. John Adams said this will be the big day everybody will remember. It's not, but it is my birthday. Many delegates will leave Philly after they have voted for independence for fear of their lives. On July 4th, some of the delegates, led by John Hancock, will sign the Declaration of Independence. We know Button Gwinnett's signature is the most valuable, and there's a guy by the name of Floyd, General Floyd, a signer who lives in Westernville. All the signatories here will be official by the end of August. So a big myth. They did not all sign this July 4th. It will be by the end of August. And if you have one of these documents, you got some moolah. So at Philadelphia is where we're debating independence. John Adams has always been for it. He gets into a big fight from somebody from Pennsylvania. His name is John Dickinson, who supports the king against independence. And obviously the Patriots will win out, though, because the Continental Congress will vote for independence. And if you remember, that was July 2nd. Then we get to this most awesome individual. However, Washington was a slave owner. It's called manumission. So when George Washington passed away, he freed his slaves. Other people might say, I am selling the slaves to collect money to pay off debt. That's not what George Washington did. When he passed away, his slaves were freed. And as we all know, he lost a lot of battles, but we won the war. Again, this famous picture of crossing the Delaware. I hope this has been helpful, because that is my goal, to be helpful and to communicate U.S. history to my APUSH students, your family, and my other U.S. Regent students on your own time, to go check out the YouTube channel. Thank you.